The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Mr. Dave Martino.
Yes. Present here.
You keep saying presents, and I never get any. Where's the gifts? Yeah. Where's the gifts?
I guess, yeah. They won't ship them to Canada.
Oh, please.
They keep getting turned away at the border.
Well, because you can't ship, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Disgusting. A bad human being.
Bad.
Sending me Robbie Knievel's foot or something. It's just sorry your idol is gone.
Do you know how many times I almost killed myself on my bike?
Yeah.
With between Evil and Robbie doing the jumps and stuff. Yeah.
It makes me wish there was another kid. Maybe third time would have been the charm. It would have been the charm,
right? Yeah.
Would have had it done. It would have been it. Crazy stuff. Everyone's dying in this beginning of this year here.
I know. It's been pretty crazy.
And Jeremy Renner, I couldn't believe that he ran over with this snowplow thing.
Oh.
Cut himself all up. Because that guy was like in tremendous shape and he was doing all that stuff and wow. It's not good.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Now I can outrun him. I can actually beat him in the movies. And that's a sad thing. But I can take down Renner. Because he was that, what was he? He was that one
Hawkeye.
guy.
Yeah.
Who?
Hawkeye?
Is that?
Yeah.
He played the guy that, what about the other one? We had the guys write that story on.
Bourne. He did a Bourne. He did a Bourne movie. I like that Bourne movie.
Yeah, he did Jason Bourne, and he, that's it.
I forget the character's name, but yeah.
Yeah, now I'm going to do it.
Are you going to be Jason Bourne now?
I'm going to have to replace him.
Yes.
Matt Damon.
Be in the new Mission Impossible.
Old. Yeah, I have to take over for all these old guys. They're done. Okay, it's over. Now, Discord. Do you know what that is?
Do I know what that is?
Yeah, and I'm not talking about your life.
That's basically it. Yeah, basically. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Well, I was on there, and some guy tried to pick me up.
Really?
And I guess he's a friend of yours, so so I had to invite him on the show. So now he's a writer, publisher, dancer. He's got quite the all-around resume here, so we're pleased to have him. So let's welcome Stephen Booth. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. The rumors of me being a dancer are actually overrated. I'm actually got 2 left feet, so I wouldn't take that too seriously.
Well, I didn't say good dancer. Just like I'm going to be the next Jason Bourne. It doesn't mean I'm going to be a good one. It just means I'm doing it, I couldn't imagine doing a Jason Bourne. God, you can hardly stay awake in the day. So listen, let's talk about you, Stephen. So where did you come from and why are you doing this?
Why am I doing this? Wow.
Like, how did you fall into it?
Against me or?
No, actually, I always wonder, I do this to everyone. I always wonder how you got into the job of publishing and writing and all this stuff like this. Is it something you've always dreamed about, something you were doing since you were a kid? Or is it something that just you fell into? Like, where did it all start?
It's sort of a combination of, I was destined for it and I fell into it. My mom's a librarian. She always wanted to be a writer. She actually wound up writing a book a while ago, and right when I was starting my publishing career, she didn't send it off to me. She sent it off to a vanity press, and it was really a bad situation, and she never wrote anything again. But I had been writing for about 10 years at that point. I got involved in writing. Dave, you may know Harry Shannon from horror.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, yeah. Harry was, he's a counselor kind of guy. I mean, he's got one of those certificates and he's a counselor. And he was my wife's counselor since she was 19 years old. And so he and I became friends through various things. And one day I was having a conversation with him and I said, I'm not a creative person and I don't know why I'm bothering to try and be creative and whatever. And this is the cursing story, by the way, so I'll cut it out. But he said, bull, word, go write a novel. And I said, I don't know how to write a novel. What are you talking about? He says, that's great. Tell me all about it when the novel's done. So I wrote a novel, and then I wrote another one, and I wrote another one. None of these got published, thankfully, to the benefit of the universe. And then round about 2010, January 2010, I had to stay home to take care of a sick family member. And I was a school teacher at the time. And you can't do both. You can't stay home and be a school teacher, at least not in 2010. And so I had to get a sort of a side hustle in order to be able to, stay home and so on. And so
That when you started dancing?
That's when I started dancing, exactly. And so Harry says to me, he says, you're technical. Make me an ebook. He's an author. He's a big time horror author. And make me an ebook. And I said, okay, I'll make you an ebook. I can figure that out. And then he goes, well, here's a best-selling author friend of mine who also needs an ebook, and go make him one. And I had been doing print design for about 20 years at that point. And or 20 years. Yeah, that's about right. And so he's like, well, it's time for me to have a paperback. Go make me a paperback. And I said, okay. And so I built this business doing book design for all these author friends of Harry's and anybody else who would come along. And then at about the same time, Harry and I wrote a short story called Jailbreak. I think you can still find it out there on Amazon for free, as a matter of fact. I didn't even know they did free anymore, but apparently it's out there. And it was a short, 5,000 word zombie apocalypse, first day of the zombie apocalypse story. And it did really well. I mean, like 150 to 200,000 downloads kind of well. And so we said, what happens next? And so we wrote a novel called The Hungry. And we were thinking about shopping it around, and I had all these skills in book design. And I said, what's the difference between what I do and a publisher other than investing my money, right? So we said, let's make a publishing company and publish this book. And if we screw it up, at least we're screwing up our book. And so we published it, and it sold a lot of copies. And we wrote book 2, and it sold a lot of copies, and repeat that up to 6. And then we wrote a prequel and a thriller, and I wrote 2 novels on my own, and one of which I just published a couple of months back, Continuity. And so I had a publishing company, and I decided to publish other people, and now I have like 40 authors and 60 or 70 titles, and true crime and horror and music, history, and all sorts of wonderful things. So that's the short version. The long version involves the dancing, and I really don't want to get into that. So
No, because that didn't turn out too well.
No, it didn't turn out too well at all.
Well, it's always you should be proud of trying things, even if they don't work out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the publishing seemed to have done a pretty good thing. The dancing, not so much. So
No. Well, you can write a book about it.
That's probably true.
Memoir. Hey, listen. So when you are doing the publishing, like it's sort of kind of built into this. I'd imagine at the beginning you didn't have a goal of I'm going to be this publisher and I'm going to have all these authors and all these titles and stuff. You were building into it, so to speak. So now that you are doing it, what's your goal as a publisher?
Wow. Really, there's 2 things. First of all, I want to make money, which is always nice. But really, we have a couple of genres that we're working in. The true crime genre, for example, we're trying to be a little different in terms of what we publish, as far as, we want to honor the victims and celebrate the heroes. We are not the glorified Ted Bundy kind of a publisher. And so I guess what we're trying to do that, in regards to your question, is just really publish a lot of good content that people want to read about that isn't, like I said, glorifying all these horrible people and their horrible acts. But in terms of the music and stuff, we publish books on music history, like Mysteries of the Music, or A Pig's Tale about the bootleg record industry and stuff like that. And we're just trying to really do a deep dive into music history. At this point, we have a couple of books that mix and match the true crime and the mystery and the music genres. We have one on the death of Elliott Smith. I don't know if you guys know who Elliott Smith is, but we have that book. It's called A Question Mark, and we have Mysteries of the Music, which is like who shot Bob Marley and who really discovered Elvis, and did the Traveling Wilburys really start out with the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and stuff like that. So some really interesting projects like that. But at the end of the day, I'm really, I want to be a publisher full time, as opposed to doing my side gig, which is right now doing the book design for other people. I love that work, but publishing is really where my heart is. And if I can, every day I work harder to make that, my primary activity. So
well, it's an interesting field. So now you yourself, what kind of writer do you consider yourself?
Growing. As far as, I split, doing the writing thing into two parts, which is writing and storytelling. I consider myself a very good writer. If I know what it is that I'm trying to say, I can say it pretty well, but I'm still learning the storytelling aspects of the process. Harry was really good. I could throw an idea at Harry, and he could design a novel from beginning to end in like 2 minutes. And that's a skill that I just don't have. And I have a couple other friends who can do that sort of thing. And I've learned that it's not necessary to be able to do that. And, I'm a kind of a follow your nose pantser, whatever, you want to call that term. But for the most part, I'm learning and growing, trying new things. My latest novel is a time travel mystery. All of my friends, all my writing friends said, whatever you do, don't write a time travel mystery. Okay. And so I did. And, I think it came out pretty good. This particular one is my soul baby. It's, that's the book that I really needed to write. The rest of them are enjoyable and interesting and fun, but that was the book that was meant to come out of my head and onto paper. So,
well, I'm wondering, how was it collaborating with Harry Shannon? It sounds like you're two different types of writers. You're more of a pantser, he's more of a plotter. And I might be wrong, just from hearing you talk about that. How did that all work? And how did you, divvy up the work between yourselves?
Well, first of all, in the unlikely event that I say anything negative about Harry, I love Harry to death. So let's just establish that, especially if he's listening. So I love you, Harry. The first book was a lot of fun because I was learning the process. I had never written, anything that was close to publishable at that point. And Harry prefers to do the second draft. So he and I got along really, really well because I didn't mind doing the first draft, just knocking it out. He gives me we work together on a synopsis that has, chapter points. Chapter starts here, ends here. Chapter next starts there and ends here, and knock that out. And then he does the polish edit, and that seemed to work very well. On the second book, I had more experience. I had published a successful novel and. So, but he still considered me very new at it. And so, that was the case in the third book and the fourth book. By the time we wrote 5 books, we've written, is it 6 or no, it's 8 books together. By the time we got to the fourth book in the process, we had a flow going on, but, at the same time, we had to learn how to, not step on each other's toes. Sometimes I would leave him notes. Please don't cut this joke or rewrite it. I like the joke the way it is. And, for the most part, he didn't, but, he and I had, different, mannerisms. We used to say it privately, and Harry, you didn't hear this. There would be Harryisms. Harryisms would be like a long string of cursing that just comes out of, I mean, it comes naturally out of the story, but it's like, I mean, I can't even give you an example. It's very elaborate, like 10 curses in a row. And, or he would talk about birds. I still tease him about the birds. The birds would be flying over and, it would be, there'd be some ominous, symbolism there. And I never really figured out what the symbolism of the birds was. So I left it in. And, actually in a novel that I'm thinking about publishing right now that I just wrote, the novel is, some geriatric demon hunters get caught up in the war between the gods for the control of the multiverse. That's the pitch for the book. And every once in a while, I have a character who's modeled after Harry, and he'll go, "Look, crows." And my characters will go, "Yes, that's true." Didn't they teach you anything? That kind of thing. So, but Harry and I, found a groove, and we managed to get, like I said, 7 zombie novels, a vampire novel, and a thriller, knocked out. And, I'm really kind of, disappointed that we're not working on new projects, but there's diminishing returns on series, and we tried a couple of standalones, and they never took off, and there's really no point in spending 1,000 hours to write a book that no one's going to read. So Harry and I are not collaborating at the moment, but maybe we will at some point.
But it was like a dance.
Yeah. It was exactly, that's the dancing to which we've been referring. Exactly. Yeah, there you go.
And just dancing alone now.
That's what it feels like. Writing, is a very introverted business, as I'm sure you all know. And it does feel like I'm dancing with myself, as Billy Idol once crooned. And is he a crooner? I don't think he's a crooner. I'm working on what am I working on right now? I'm working on a PI novel. I told you my mom's a librarian, so this is a librarian with a gun PI novel. Literally, the main character has a MLIS. So.
Your characters, so where do you come up with them? And how do you experience them? That's always kind of a good overall discussion. Like, are you intimate with your characters? Do you see them, hear them, talk to them and all that? Or do you have a different sort of way of creating and working with your characters?
When I was in college at UC Santa Cruz, I did a lot of role-playing games, not Dungeons and Dragons with the maps and stuff like that, but actual storytelling, interactive storytelling.
So you'd wear a dress.
I learned, I did not wear a dress, although I will say that one time I offered, if my friend got married, I would show up in a miniskirt. And she did get married, and I did not show up in a miniskirt. To this day, she's angry at me for that. She was one of my role-playing game friends. Anyways, I learned how to channel characters. I just sit back and watch them go. I mean, they would have their own dialogue and their own, storylines and stuff like that. And I would just be sitting there and eating M&Ms and drinking, Mountain Dew and whatever it is that we were doing at that time, and letting the character have his way with the story. And it was really kind of cathartic to be able to just let go of myself and let this other character channel through me. And I think it kind of gave me some bad habits, actually, because that's how I write now. Is I just, I come up with a couple of characters and not like with those character sheets. I never liked those at all. But I would just conceive of a character and then just let them run. And I watch them, I watch the story unfold as the reader does. And I try and direct it in a particular, to a particular point in each chapter, so that it's, interesting and readable. But for the most part, I'm just like, wow, this is fun. Let's see what happens next. This is great. With my, librarian with a gun story, I built in a lot of backstory that I haven't discussed, with the reader, for this particular character. And, I'm not certain all the details. I'm sure I will discover them as they appear in the story, but, he has some sort of dark past, and I didn't realize that when I started writing it. I thought it was just a guy going in for a job interview, and now there's all these possibilities,
Have any of these characters ever really gone off the rails and really just taken the story in such a direction that it made it hard to get back on track?
Yeah, but I mean, that was back in the day when I was working with Harry on a regular basis. I was writing a couple of, I have this one novel, my very first novel. I've actually rewritten it 4 times. And in a couple of cases, the characters have just really gone sideways on me. And I would discuss the situation with Harry, and he'd say, protect your characters. Always have them be on the side of right. Never have them do anything that would be reprehensible or otherwise, lose the reader's support for them, and never kill them. Those were basically the rules that he gave me for my own writing, and I try and do that every time I sit down. Is I try and keep them on the side of right, even if they've done things in the past, they're making up for them now. But yes, my characters often do things that I was not expecting. And as a matter of fact, with the Geriatric Demon Hunter book, I'm still trying to figure out the ending, because the ending that I had it really made sense in the book, but it didn't. It would not have satisfied any of the readers, and it didn't satisfy me. So I pulled it, and I'm still trying to find the ending. A little more Harry Potter than what's that, Inside Out or whatever.
Do you hear your characters then, like when you're driving and they start talking to you, or
yeah?
Should you be driving, and are you waking up in the middle of the night with bloody shoes or something?
I like to say that I channel the characters. I have not gone so far as to lose. It's not just dissociative identity disorder, if that's what you're asking. Certainly I know the difference between their voice and mine. But none of them are homicidal to the best of my knowledge, and at least not to anything that's living. I did write 7 zombie novels, or 6 of them actually, in a vampire novel in the same series. And, they did a lot of killing, but it was to the zombies, and that's okay. Although I've never understood why in the zombie apocalypse, people don't go around, shooting the people who wronged them, whether they were zombies or not. That was always a question I wanted to ask, but I think that's the first time I've done it publicly. Anyways, no, I don't wind up with bloody shoes, but I do hear the characters, in my head. I see them. I understand, to a certain degree where they're going with what they have to say. It's often the supporting characters that I don't have as much of a handle on. So I'm not, and they're the ones who guide the story. It's like my main character is the role playing character, and everybody else is a function of the game master in my mind, guiding the story and pushing the character in different ways. It's actually kind of fun exploring a story, as the character sees it,
Well, you can hear your characters. Do you hear the prose too as you're writing it?
I'm going to say yes, but only insofar as I don't have a problem. I mean, writing has never been something that I've had trouble with. I mean, when I was in elementary school, I'm guessing that you guys and I are the same age, because you were bringing up Evel Knievel, and I had those toys. Okay, I did.
Me too.
When I was in grade school, they would teach you, write the first draft, edit the draft, write the second draft, do a final polish and turn it in. I would write one draft, check it for proofreading, and turn it in, and it would be done. I mean, it would be what I was trying to say. So I've never really had trouble expressing myself in words. So being in this business, I've done a lot of editing, and I'm a terrible proofreader. Please don't ask me to proofread. That's my wife's job. But I'm actually quite a good editor. I'm good at, writing whatever it is that I'm trying to write, but trying to find the story in the words is a different, experience. Right now I'm helping an author with, it's sort of a deep developmental edit. It's what I call a brutal edit. It's a Western. Okay. And his idea of a Western is to give every detail that you can ever think about of a Smith & Wesson for like a page. And I write action adventure. I want the story to move. So I'm like, no, we have to cut all this. But Western readers want to hear about how much marshals get paid for the mile. And I'm like, that's lovely. Let's put it in dialogue and have it be organic. Let's move forward. Come on. So we're in the process of creating that story. Sort of, he's written it, and I'm sort of massaging it into something that could possibly be published. And I haven't agreed to publish it yet. I'm waiting for him to learn the writing process a little bit more directly, but it's the same kind of thing.
Do you ever put a subtext, or do you have kind of an idea that you want people to get out of the stories that you write?
Oh, like a theme?
Yeah, is there some sort of meaning? Like if someone picks up continuity and they take it home and they read it, of course there's the the entertainment value of the story and all the different wild things you do, but is there a meaning behind it as well?
Theme is something that I've struggled with basically since third grade. I didn't understand it in third grade. I'm still trying to figure it out. Yes, in my stories, there's, Harry called it a controlling concept. Okay. When we were writing the zombie novels, the Penny Miller's the main character of the zombie novels, and her thing was duty. Okay. So everything that went on from her character's point of view was about her duty to her friends. And with continuity, it's a little bit different because really I was exploring the family of time travelers rather than time travel itself. Obviously I go into the time travel aspects of it and the technology of it to a certain extent and how it all works and how it came to be. But it's really about, Carlos is my main character. It's really about Carlos interacting with this extremely dysfunctional family who basically has no limits and no rules. And, it's about him going from basically being a dysfunctional child to a functional adult in the space of about 45 hours. Is there a theme there? I don't know. I mean, maybe I should leave that to the book critics or something like that. But, for me, it's really about him growing up, or taking his grown-upness by the reins, if that's even, has anybody ever said that before? Taking their grown-upness by the reins? At any rate, that's what I was trying for. You can see I struggle with themes, so there you go.
Well, you're talking about continuity. How do you organize your work? How do you remember all this stuff as you're either working through a novel or a series? Do you have a series Bible? Do you use certain tools? How does that work for you?
A lot of it's in my head. To be honest with you, I used to think that there was an entire story in my mind, and I could only see little snippets of it, and there was something defective about my ability to tell stories based on that fact that I could only see snippets of it. No, there's really only the snippets, but I do have like the entire technology of time travel sitting in a drawer in my head, if you will. And I can dip into that whenever I need to so that it stays consistent. As far as organization, it's not, I tried using Scrivener. I'm really a linear writer. I love Word. I know that's heresy in the writing world at this point, but I've actually, I don't consider myself an expert in many things, but I do consider myself an expert in document formatting, and Word is my favorite program for that. And I know that a lot of people will get angry over that, but it's true. And so I just write linearly. But I do have, certain things that I'm trying to say, whether that's theme or not remains to be seen. As far as, trying to get, in continuity, for example, because it was about the family, I worked really hard to get the family all in one place. So that I could, everybody could see the dynamics, or really it has a lot to do with, Carlos and his sister. So, getting Carlos and his sister together were really important. But once I was able to do that, I was able to just channel again. It took a little bit of doing to get him in the right place at the right time. And, some people may not agree with the way I got there. I've actually had people push back. Why did he go to New York instead of Toronto? That's a literal conversation in the book. And, it's because I needed him to be in New York. You know, I mean, isn't that obvious? You need to go to New York. And so I hope people reading it are going to go, okay, I got to look for that now. But for the most part, I think I did a pretty good job of making it organic, that he needed to be here at this time to meet this person so that this part of the story could happen. You know, that's really all I can tell you on that.
That's very interesting. Well, we're talking about time travel. I'm wondering how important is it for you to get the science right? Do you take a lot of liberties in a time travel story? Are you going with what is like modernly accepted by science?
According to my editor-publisher friends, of which I have several who have read this, I think I broke a lot of the tropes. I mean, this isn't Looper. This isn't 13 Monkeys. It's, I came up with my own concept of why time travel was even possible. This isn't hard science fiction. There's a device called the Great Clock, and that's where the time travel comes from. But I do justify its existence in sort of a light, tangential, it comes up every once in a while kind of a manner. The devices that allow for time travel, personal time travel, are, I mention what they look like. I mention how they operate a little bit. But I do have a very strong idea of what's going on in the background in my head so that everything is consistent. I'm already giving away way too much about this story. So I won't go into how I get to where, the technology of the time travel. But no, this is not, and these are not time cops. Okay. That's the number one thing, about this family is they don't really care what happens to the rest of the world when they change the past, as long as it doesn't affect them. And there are rules. I put the laws of time travel, and that dictates how the family, the time travel family, can manage to not erase themselves. As a matter of fact, the whole premise of the book is what happens if those rules get violated. That's what continuity refers to. It's one of the rules.
Yeah, very interesting. No prime directive, it seems like.
No, although I will say that if they had been a little bit more cognizant of what was going on in the world around them, they wouldn't have gotten themselves into this mess in the first place. But that's all I'm willing to say on this subject. So.
Well, where do your characters come from? And tell us a little bit about your main characters in this book.
Okay. Where do they come from? Do you
get them from people that you meet? And
well, the number one controlling concept, if I can use that term again, for creating characters is they're not me. I am not just putting myself in the story. I can relate to them, and at a very deep level, they're coming from me. But I'm not just writing myself into novels. I try to have them be, different backgrounds, different speech patterns, different, educational, resources and so on. Actually, the biggest challenge that I face is I have 2 master's degrees. Okay, good for me. I try not to write really intelligent characters who sound like they have 2 master's degrees. And that's actually a big challenge for me because, it's easy for me to just drop into my language set. And, but like, for example, Carlos in continuity is, I understand him. But he's, his family is, like I said, very dysfunctional. His father is, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, a psychopath, and treats him that way. And I mean, not a violent psychopath, but, there are other types of abuse. By the way, just as a side note, I worked with Al Carlisle, who was the, psychologist at Draper Strait Prison in Utah when Ted Bundy came into the 90-day diagnostic unit. And Al's job was to figure out if he was violent or not before anybody knew who he was. Spoiler alert, he was. So I got a lot of inside ideas about how sociopaths and psychopaths work. So anyways, Now we go back to my character. So the dad is a psychopath, and how do you try to live up to the rules and expectations of a psychopath when you're not that kind of a person? And, a lot of it has to do with, macho culture and things like that. Those are all backstory to this. Really Carlos's character is trying to fit into somebody else's model, his father's model of what a man is. And he's doing a terrible job of it. And really the whole premise of the story from the very first word is him trying to get out of that. Trying to get out of his, if you read the back cover sales copy, it's like, I don't want to be involved with this family anymore. How do I get out of it? And the whole story, extends from him not wanting to be like his father and doing a bad job of it. So, and it's, as far as the, like, for example, this new novel that I'm writing, which is called Shy Boy. This is the librarian with a gun. My main character is, he's, how do I say it? He's trying to find his way in the world, but he has a very good sense of who he is and, what he's trying to accomplish. But he's sort of dividing his attention between him wanting to just be a librarian and work in reference and answer questions about, where to find a purple book and have some adventure in his life. And so he's just making a different decision at that point moving forward. So I guess, at the end of the day, the characters, where do the characters come from? I take a little slice of myself and build a character around them and then let them play. But I tried very hard not to let them be me. There's one part of me that they're off playing with, but not the entire set,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. It reminded me that I had I had an editor once write back to me in an early story and said that I was using my own vocabulary. that was higher than the or greater than the character. So it was pretty funny.
That's really hard. It's really hard. And I work with in my book design business. I'm working with this nonprofit that does addiction recovery. And their number one controlling concept, where we go again, is it has to be at a fourth grade level or below to really communicate. And they, this one book that we worked on called Successful Life Skills, really hit that. But when you talk to the professors and the psychologists instead of the people who are, actually having the problems, then, you don't communicate with them. So actually being able to use a vocabulary that isn't as sophisticated as the one that I use on a regular basis is a really challenging thing that I spend a lot of effort working on. And I don't always succeed, but I do understand your editor's point that if you're using your own vocabulary, basically you're just how do you differentiate between this character and that character when they have the same vocabulary?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's difficult when it comes to stuff like that, and it's just one of those things that luckily we have that ability to go back and do a lot of editing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, this is not performance art. Thankfully, I never understood how somebody. I mean, I'm doing a book right now on Thelonious Monk. I'm not making that up, and for 40 years he played the same songs over and over and over and over again. Okay. And I would go out of my mind if I had to do that. I have no idea how somebody can possibly. I mean, I know that there are performers who are amazing. Dave Grohl plays, has been doing his music for 30 years. I was just watching on something on Dave Grohl, and he's amazing at it every single time. And it's just like, at this point, I like the variety. So I'm glad that this is not performance art, that I can go back and edit. And then once it's done, then it's done. And I don't have to think about it anymore.
You take people and kill them off.
Horribly. And often, childhood schoolmates and, ex-girlfriends and, I try to do my best not to name them the same as the original person, but yeah, I've been known to, go sideways. I mean, especially in the zombie novels. I recall writing in a couple of, friends who really, what's that line from Lilo and Stitch where she's putting the forks in the pickle jar and shaking them up and they've got little faces on them and she says, my friends need to be punished. I love that movie. It's the same kind of thing, but, yeah, in the zombie novels, it gave me a lot of opportunity to take out a lot of, tension on some, on my characters, even if they're just, show up, get killed, done. Although one of the fun things about doing the zombie novels, I have to admit, was describing the zombies. Just as a side note, we would always have a soccer mom and we'd have, a football player and, a priest and just anybody we had, zombie Girl Scouts. I don't want to give away too much, but we did have zombie Girl Scouts and that was probably one of the most fun scenes that we did. So just being able to come up with, concepts for, how to describe them so that they're not obviously somebody that we knew when we were kids or whatever. But, so we definitely kill off a character.
So let's talk about, your contact information and that. So now if someone is interested in sending you a manuscript or I don't know if you're looking for people or not and type of things, let's talk about your publishing and the publishing contact.
We are Genius Book Publishing, geniusbookpublishing.com. If you go to geniusbookpublishing.com, you will see submissions as one of the, the navigation items. And you can also go to geniustruecrime.com or geniusmusicbooks.com. It's all the same. So go to submissions. You're going to wind up talking to my wife, Leah. She's our submissions editor and our editor in chief. And she loves reading all the submissions. She gets violent about, you're overloaded. Can I read one of the submissions? No. She wants to read all that stuff. We are looking for, I believe, and please check the website. I believe we're still looking for true crime. Occasionally we'll entertain a music book. But those are more involved and, fiction. I love fiction. We're publishing fiction a couple times a year, but it's really a hard sell because it's like, how do you describe a book about dragons in a way that it shows up in the search engines and doesn't get swamped by every other book about dragons or zombies or anything like that? So if you have a true crime book, geniusbookpublishing.com/submissions, you'll find it. If you want to find me, go scroll down to the bottom. There's our mailing address. It's got my phone number. Yes, that's really my phone number. It will really ring to my phone. And I will really pick up if it's business hours. We are interested in hearing from people. And also plug for my book design business. If you are interested in being an entrepreneur and doing your own book and being the publisher, I'm happy to apply all my lovely skills on book design to your book and make it as beautiful as any commercial book out there. And then you can give me a check and then I'd be happy, that kind of thing. It's supposed to be investing my own money in the books. That's, and one thing that we didn't touch upon, but as long as you're talking about, how to get in touch with me, I'm also, an artist. I'm a painter. I have, you guys can see in the background a bunch of the paintings that I've done. Stephen Booth, Stephen with a V, StephenBoothArt.com. You can see a bunch of the stuff that I've been doing.
Wow, fantastic. Of course, we'll have all of that up on the website and our social media so people can find you real easily. It's all what we want to do here. So how was the pandemic and writing over that? Do you find that, stress?
I did a lot of painting. I write when I'm not stressed out and I paint when I'm stressed. So, I did complete, I think one of my novels. I think I got all the way through the geriatric Demon Hunter novel during the pandemic. It does take a long time for me to write. But I mostly cranked out paintings, of like I said, my wife says I paint chicks and jets. I do a lot of figurative art with women and airplanes and so on. But yeah, the pandemic was good for creativity, not necessarily great for writing. Published a lot of stuff though.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people that way. Some people did really well with it, and some people had the opposite. You know, they shut down and couldn't write. And they weren't as creative. So, you know, I guess it depends on how attached you are to the emotions around you, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't, I write to entertain myself. I mean, a lot of people write to express their emotions or their, you know, their stresses or whatever. I don't watch TV. Okay. So, which I know a lot of people find to be anathema because it's like, where am I supposed to get my ideas from? I have plenty of ideas. I read a lot, and I don't watch TV except for when my wife insists, and then we'll watch, you know, like Whose Line Is It Anyway or whatever. But for the most part, I write and I paint and I do my job, and that's my evenings. Pretty much every evening I'm doing one of those three things, or I'm hanging out with my cats. I didn't mention this before. I do have 8 cats. Yes, we have a full 8, and they will happily sit on me the moment I slow down long enough for them to do that. So,
wow, cat lover.
Yeah, no, cat dad, absolutely. Actually, on one of my on my Instagram account, Stephen Booth Writer, I do post some videos of the cats licking my hair and sitting on me and stuff like that. My other social media, I don't do that a lot, but for that particular one, I do. So
it's like pornography.
It is. It's cat lover pornography. There's a lot of that, actually. I have a magnet on my refrigerator that says, "I want to wake up tomorrow to no news, 0, just cat videos," and I totally relate to that. So I could, you know.
Well, how do you get anything done with all those cats? I have one cat, and I have a hard time doing anything.
It's actually as hard as you think it is. You know, if I hadn't locked all the cats out except for Princess is right next to me. She's asleep. You know, I do have a couple of cats that have adopted me, and they want to be in my arms at all times, and it makes it difficult for me to type one-handed. For the most part, I either ignore them or I lock them out, which doesn't make anybody, including my wife, happy. She would prefer that I pay more attention to them than my books. So, but she's very supportive.
Pretty amazing. Hey, so let's talk about your inspiration, like when you're at home, and say you don't watch TV really. So where do you gather inspiration? Like if you're, you know, maybe you have a writer's block, or maybe you don't have that, but where does it come from, the initiative? Like, do you have any sort of music or other writers?
First of all, I'm ADD, so I listen to music 100% of the time. I mean, that's all I do. I have 2 sets of wireless headphones in different parts of the house, and I just listen to music 100% of the time. When I'm not, even when I'm reading, actually. I have a couple of authors that I really, really admire, who I will happily shout out to. But you know, their books, I will admit, they wrote the books that I love probably 25 years ago. There's David Gerald, the guy who created the Tribbles for Star Trek. He's probably my top favorite author, and I get a lot of inspiration for ideas from him. Stephen Saylor, who does the Roma Sub Rosa novels. I mean, if you want great PI in Rome Republic and Rome Empire novels, Stephen Saylor has the best ones.
Yeah, I know him. I had him on the show too.
Oh, you have? Oh, you're automatically my new best friend. I mean, I've had 2 conversations with him, and that's the thing about being in this business. I lived in Los Angeles for a long time, and actors are lovely. You know, good. Hey, you're on TV or you're on a movie. That's great. Authors are like my thing. Okay. So Dave, it's actually an honor to meet you, you know, to actually talk to you for more than 5 minutes, because I've known about your work for a long time, and you're certainly somebody that I've been wanting to talk to for a while. Don't let that go to your head.
No.
But the other guy I want to shout out to is Stephen Bruce. He writes PI novels in fantasy, universes. I like cross-genre PI novels, which is how I wound up writing a lot of the stuff that I write. The continuity is actually a mystery novel, so there you go. But so and then I read about science, and I read about I particularly like reading biographies of scientists and deep stories about like where did the Archaeopteryx come from, and why do whales have fingers and things like that. So as far as other than that, it just I'll start noodling and throw some ideas together, and then a story will evolve, and I'll hook onto it and start writing it.
Where does the true crime come from for you? But it doesn't sound like you have true crime people that you're totally following or reading. So where does that come from?
No, the true crime comes from my wife. I talked about Al Carlisle for a minute. In 2012, I was at World Horror in, I think it was either Provo or Salt Lake City. And the showrunner, her father is Al Carlisle. And so he was hawking a book on Ted Bundy while I was there. I was doing my zombie stuff, and I'm wandering around, and there's my wife. She came with me. She goes up to the table. She comes back to me. She pulls on my arm. She says, "Stephen, we're publishing a book." I said, "We're doing what?" She says, "Yeah, this guy, this guy wrote a book about Ted Bundy, and we're publishing it." And I said, "You've been talking to him for 3 minutes. How is it that we're publishing this book?" Nope, that's it. We're done. She's the true crime junkie in the house. If I hadn't met that, Dr. Carlisle and a couple of the other people that I've worked with, I probably wouldn't be conversant in, Keith Jesperson and, Arthur Gary Bishop and Ted Bundy and stuff like that. But, I actually, through circumstances that I would have preferred not have happened, I was actually on the Happy Face, podcast. You probably couldn't recognize my voice because I sound like I'm in an aquarium, but Dr. Carlisle was supposed to be interviewed on the Happy Face, which is about Keith Jesperson. It's his daughter doing the podcast, and he passed away 2 days before he was going to be interviewed. So they scrambled, and they were looking for somebody who could channel him, for lack of a better way of phrasing it. And so I did some research. I'd already been doing some research on Keith Jesperson at that point, and so I had the opportunity to be a true crime expert for 2 episodes on Happy Face. And, like I said, if you listen to I think it's the second or third episode, there's a guy who sounds like he's in an aquarium. That's me. Even though I was on a landline, the signal was terrible, and I sound like, I sound like I'm in a cave. So
it's all right. Never listen to true crime podcasts.
No. Okay. Good. Yeah. So true crime, I kind of came out sideways. The same thing with the music. Somebody went, "Hey, don't you want to publish this book?" And I went, "Okay." And then I had to learn everything about the industry. So
yeah. Well, you're an interesting guy. So
thank you.
The man. The time is up, and we're glad you came on the show. Now, of course, we're talking with author and publisher and part-time dancer, Mr. Stephen Booth. Thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure. It was really a lot of fun to talk to you guys, and I appreciate you being interested in my version of insanity. So,
thanks, Stephen.
You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or shows, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Well, good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.